Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're continuing on different distribution channels, more specifically looking at where the procurement activity fits into this pipeline of distribution. What I've done to simplify it, I'm giving you three different structures to a distribution channel here. The first one there is the most common and most simple one. You have a manufacturer that supplies to a wholesaler. It supplies to retail, ultimately distribute to customer or consumer. If you, in other words, if you are the purchaser, the procurement manager for the retailer, you can see that your point of interaction will be with the wholesaler. And if you are the purchasing manager for the wholesaler, you can see that your point of interaction will be the manufacturer. Now you may want to, let's assume that you as the retailer, you're concerned slightly with the quality that you're getting or with the price that you're getting from the wholesaler. You may request to have a say, to have some sort of an impact, input in the decision that's made insofar as the manufacturer is concerned, so that you can also do some sort of a quality assurance upfront before it moves to a wholesaler. But wholesalers are not very fond of that if you want to do that, because they have a specific role to play here, and that is to gather from various manufacturers and pass that on to you for a premium. They wouldn't want the retailer to skip the wholesaler and go directly to manufacturer. But that's something that you need to negotiate and manage. So that would be one distribution pipeline, and you can see where the procurement officer there is positioned and what the function and role all entails for that specific position. Then you get manufacturer. Once again, you'll see that we start with manufacturer in each one of them. I could have also started with raw material here or sub-assembly point, but it's a point of start. It's where the product comes from, way upstream. In this case, I'm not working with a wholesaler, I'm now working with a sales agent or a broker. And as you can see by this design, that comes in between the wholesaler and the retailer. Previous one, I had direct wholesaler retailer. Now I have a sales agent or a broker. And yes, there's a margin that you're giving away there. But if there's a specific purpose or a role, a value-adding function that this sales agent is playing, then you're going to keep it there. You're going to pay for that service, because you're going to discount that into your price to the end user, to the consumer in any event. So a little bit of a longer distribution channel that I have here. And again, if you're retailer, your point of interaction is the same. Wholesaler now, if you're the purchaser for the wholesaler, you will not interact necessarily directly with manufacturer, but you will interact with the sales agent or the broker as it then flows through to the consumer. And then the last one here that I gave you just as an example is where I have a manufacturer of a branch into a wholesaler, into retailer, and into consumer. Let's talk a little bit more about this inbound and outbound flow process via the distribution channels. Again, just to position the purchasing manager and to talk a little bit about the role and the function that you need to perform here. Inbound, I have a customer order that needs to be executed. The purchase happens there, inputs from suppliers, and it then goes through to the manufacturing process. So in this point, the focal business sits between inbound and outbound. Think back to where we started when I showed you that first slide and I said to you, this is the organizational context, inbound, outbound, and in-pond, the transformation that takes place in the organization. Here it is again, but a little bit more broken down. Inbound would be the customer order and getting the stock from suppliers. Here would be the focal point, manufacturing process, moving it into sales and distribution. The outbound would be outbound. Now it goes either directly to customer. That's one way of outbound. One way. The others is it might go via a distribution center or warehouse and then go to the customer. And here, ladies and gentlemen, it's very important. Yes, you have a certain function and a role to play as a procurement manager. But sometimes it might be necessary for you to also give input in terms of the outbound logistics. Let me give you an example. Let's assume that you are tasked with increasing the margin of your purchases. So you work for a textile industry as an example. You travel the world sourcing materials, seeing different manufacturing plants, different production setups to make a selection for a specific garment that you're going to make for a number of years, or you're going to establish a relationship with a supplier that you're going to use for a number of years, hopefully. Now you need to start to break down the various steps in the supply chain process, all the way from inbound to outbound. From concept, as we talk in the fashion industry, from concept to shelf. One of those refers to the warehouse or the distribution center. And that can very quickly end up being a huge cost center. So I go from South Africa, I go to China, I find my manufacturer. I sign all the contracts, everything is ready. The manufacturer manufactures the goods, and it's then shipped to me in South Africa, where I put it in a warehouse, put it in a distribution center, whereby I break the entire bulk order into smaller bits based on the orders per the various retail stores that I have. So that's a function that the DC plays. And in most organizations, that's why the DC is there, and that's why we keep the DC there. Because there's this perceived value add that the DC brings. It checks that everything comes in, it does a little bit of random quality checking, it makes sure that the orders are correctly lined up, it loads the trucks or whatever distribution method you want to make use of, and that then goes out to the retail store. But if your price point is under pressure and you can't negotiate a better price from the manufacturer, you have exhausted that option. You have to look at the efficiencies within the supply chain. And now what some organizations are doing with great success, and in the process contributing hugely to the margin, is they skip the distribution center stage. They take it out completely. They talk about what is known as cross-docking. That means if I can have my orders from the respective stores set up, that demand requirements plan, if I can have that set up and I can then integrate that with my material requirements plan, with the product that's now going to come across the water into South Africa, into my market, if I can match that at the point where they pack the order in Hong Kong, in China, then I don't need a distribution center. I can take the container directly as it arrives in Cape Town or in Durban Harbour in South Africa. I can load it onto a truck, and that truck can then go directly to the stores where it is offloaded at the point of store. I, in other words, don't need the additional step of a distribution center. It's technically quite complicated. You need a lot of management information systems, and obviously you need the right people for this, who now at the store needs to perform the quality checks, needs to check that what has been ordered has actually been delivered in terms of the right sizes and coloring and everything else that's appropriate in that industry. So this, via distribution center, it can be there, but it has to add value. The minute your margin comes under pressure and you can skip that and go directly to customer or directly to store at least, then you have a huge increase in your margin. So this is just to show you in terms of the positioning of the procurement manager. Yes, I'm primarily involved here at purchasing from the supplier. But if I'm measured on margin, I want to be involved here as well, where I can see whether there's not efficiencies that I can introduce into the overall inbound and outbound flow process via distribution channels. All right, thank you very much. That's the end of the session.